It Welcome to Derry episode 3 has just been released, and after waiting 10 days for this episode, it's safe to say that it definitely delivered with providing more clarity whilst also bridging the connection between the past and present. Within episode 3, we also got to see just how useful Dick Hallorann could be, and the Losers Club forming and looking to lure out Pennywise so they could capture some proof. So with that, let's dive into this episode, discuss the importance of the flashback in the opening scene, and also reveal all that there was to take away from it. Here is It Welcome to Derry episode 3, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. The importance of the opening scene. So this episode opened up in 1908, and we were introduced to a young boy called Francis as he was at a carnival in Derry. The purpose of this carnival was to establish the fear that Francis had so it would later be able to be utilized on him by Pennywise, which is exactly what we saw. The skeleton man was the biggest fear that Francis saw when he was there, and then later on in the episode we saw that when he wandered into the woods after befriending Rose, that was where the vision of the skeleton man that was being projected by Pennywise appeared in front of him. This was the first true insight into seeing the speed in which Pennywise operated, and that he latched onto the biggest fears of those that he essentially wanted to prey on. We saw it with Lily and Ronnie in episode 2, but with this being one that didn't have a personal connection, it showed that it was almost always about making your worst nightmares a reality. The speaker at the carnival did say that what Francis was walking into was a grotesquerie of horror beyond his darkest imaginings, and it was exactly that. Another purpose of this opening scene was to establish the importance of Francis and Rose and connect to the reveal that would be happening later on down the line in the episode with their identities. In 1962, Rose was the woman that worked in the second-hand shop that we'd seen feature several times, but she was also a figurehead in the Native American community that was present in Derry, and essentially part of the other team who was facing off against the military due to the digging that they were doing on native burial grounds. Then, with Francis being revealed to be General Shaw, the leader of the entire operation, it showed that what was once a relationship between two people from different communities that was brought together and saw no difference were now against one another, and it almost highlighted that separation that was present in Derry amongst different communities. This opening scene also added important context to why it is that General Shaw wants to find the artifact so bad and look to weaponize it against the Russians as part of the Cold War. Shaw has first-hand experience when it comes to understanding just how dangerous this entity can be, and the fear that it can induce into somebody, so he knows the strength that will come with it, and the fact that it could quite literally grind the Russians' operation to a halt. With the slingshot being in the box of cigars, the very slingshot that was present in 1908 when he saw Pennywise in the form of the entity for the first time. That was why he gave it to Hallorann in order to search for the artifacts, because there was a connection there. The final thing that this opening scene connected to was the other supernatural entity and hold that Derry has over the people, and that is that if you're lucky to make it out of Derry, then you don't actually remember any of your time there. Shaw was obviously there when he was a young boy due to his father being in the military base, and it was only when he returned to Derry that he got his memories back of what haunted him, and also Rose, so it provided more clarity on the eerie backdrop of the town. With Shaw being dishonest with Rose and not listening to Hallorann when he told him that if they kept doing what they were doing then something bad was going to happen, and that maybe they should let things be. It showed that this personal connection that Shaw has with it and the want to find the source of it could end up bringing about his demise. Something else I will say about this opening scene is that it showed why Shaw is so understanding of Hallorann and doesn't see him to be a strange individual. Shaw has seen the supernatural side of things with his own eyes, and with Hallorann being spooked after seeing it for the first time, he knew exactly what he was going through, so he's got empathy for him. The Losers Club. Following the opening scene, we saw the backdrop of Juniper Hill as a facility and the calm and docile state that all of the patients were in, most likely because they were up to their eyeballs in medication. But most importantly, we saw Lily. Lily was speaking with Ingrid, who we were told she was fond of in the asylum, and she told her something which changed the direction of the character moving forward. Ingrid said that her father told her that life was about the journey, but she believed that it was more about who you take the journey with. This was what made Lily realize that she shouldn't have told the authorities that she saw Hank there, even though they were pushing for her to accuse him. And that's why she ultimately went to Ronnie with this plan of being able to lure the entity out and try and take photos of it. When Ronnie was at school, the patty cakes had written on her locker that Hatchet Hank was going to fry for what he did, and as she wiped it off, the red paint on her hands almost symbolized the fact that she felt as though she had blood on her hands. The blood of Teddy, Phil, and Susie due to her being at the Capitol Theatre on the night where they died, and also her father's blood because she felt like there was nothing she could do about it. However, with Lily's idea of trying to take photos of the entity, she ultimately went to Will because he was the smartest person that she knew, and she thought he might have known how to have developed photos, as if they went to an ordinary place, then they most likely wouldn't have got the photos back. The Losers Club arc in this episode wasn't only about driving the plot forward when it came to Pennywise, but it was also about showing us the different relationships that were going to be forming. For example, we heard how Rich was besotted with Marge and wanted a relationship with her, but also the desire that he has to make friends as he's an individual that spends a lot of time on his own. And as well as that, we also saw how Will had some kind of romantic interest in Ronnie too. The accidental hand-holding and the embrace that they had at the end when he made it out of the graveyard. It showed that there could be something that's on the horizon for the both of them. With the group carrying out the process of summoning an Orixa, we saw that Pennywise showed himself in the graveyard in the form of Susie, Matty, and Teddy, and was chasing after them. It was when Will dropped through the cracks in the ground and captured a photo inside of some ruins where Pennywise actually showed himself in his truest form of the clown, and they managed to get that photo developed. With them making it out of the graveyard, breaking into the school, and getting the photos from the darkroom completed, this then begs the question on if anybody is actually going to believe them, or if they're going to be stuck right back at square one again. I think Will's father is the bridge to all of this, as he's the person that's aware of Hallorann's supernatural abilities, and if Will goes to his father, Leroy might end up going to Hallorann, and Hallorann could then also go to Shore. That's what the natural pathway feels like for this story. Dick Hallorann. Hallorann got his largest feature in this episode of the show, and it was about time. During episode 3, we saw his shining ability in full swing, and he was tasked with being sent up in the helicopter with the hopes of finding the location of where the artifacts that were buried more than 300 years before the automobile was invented. However, Hallorann was drawn to it because it was from the 1935 cycle of It plaguing the town of Derry. This was a part of the Bradley Gang massacre where the entity was spotted in one of its true forms. When Hallorann was up in the air with the slingshot that was given to him by Shaw, he saw it for the first time, and he essentially saw that it had a similar ability to what it did in the sense that it was able to enter people's minds. This was actually the first time that we saw the entity trying to get somebody to end things for themselves rather than taking them. When Hallorann was having his visions, he saw the dead, and he also saw his dead grandmother, somebody who's of great importance to him because she's the person who would have passed down the shining ability that he has. This is because when they were younger, they were seen to have conversations with each other without ever moving their lips. She said to him in his vision, "He's coming, Dickie. You have to get out." Hence why he warned Shaw that they should probably leave the entity alone. Pennywise was actually trying to make Hallorann walk off the back of the helicopter, and I feel like that's the case because it knows how powerful and dangerous Hallorann has the potential of being. It actually took Leroy Hanlon intervening for Hallorann to be saved, and I think that's foreshadowing the fact that Hallorann is going to be returning the favor in the future when he ends up saving Hallorann's son. We also might be seeing the likes of the Black Spot being open too. This is the establishment that Hallorann and his friends are going to open. I say this because Hallorann mentioned to Shaw that he wanted a place where he and his friends could wind down without rain falling on their heads, so I think we'll see that establishment open in the next few episodes. My review of episode 3. Once again, this was a really strong episode of TV. It had true nightmare-inducing horror within its core, and the story developed in a real natural way. The opening scenes of the episode really set the tone and mood for what we go on to see, and having a flashback in this one was perfect. I loved how it connected to the identity reveal later on down the line, and I was left questioning for a large chunk of the episode if Francis ended up getting got by the Skeleton Man. The way that the entity ran, the voice that he had, and also the sheer amount of teeth was nightmare-inducing. A story that I think is kind of flying under the radar at the moment, but will most likely end up having consequences, is the restless nature that Charlotte Hanlon has. She's unhappy about the move that she had to do to Derry, but also the fact that her voice is being silenced by her husband because he's fearful that his career in the military might be jeopardized if she looks to speak out against what she's seeing. I remember seeing an image in the trailer of it showing Hanlon and his wife in a state where she looked like she'd been killed, so I do wonder if something bad is going to happen to her. The opening scene of this episode being set in 1908 was almost like a glimpse of the different time periods that we're going to get for future seasons, and it's got me excited to go back in time for the seasons that will be occurring over the next few years. When it comes to a show that has young cast members, sometimes the level of performances might not be as strong due to their ages. However, the young cast in this show are absolutely killing it. They're delivering their performances so well, and the emotion that they're delivering and the conviction in their roles is outstanding. I'm really impressed. I think Ronnie is the standout for me, but the humor of Rich gets me as well. The story around the native community and the strategic approach that Rose has is something that's on the back burner right now, but I'm interested to see how it's going to develop. The native community would have been the first people to have ever experienced the entity, and that was shown to us with the secret that Rose told Francis when he was younger. So I wonder if, even though right now it seems like there's division between the military and the Native American community, if that will be mended due to them helping each other when they find out exactly what they're doing. It Welcome to Derry just keeps getting better and better, and I'm glad we finally got a glimpse of it in the form of a clown. Even if it was dark and tiny, it's really building towards the reveal by teasing it to us, and I can't wait until it does finally happen. So, there you have it. It Welcome to Derry Episode 3 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos on It Welcome to Derry, then check the playlist below, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. What did you think of this episode? Share your thoughts in the comments. As always, thanks for tuning into the video, and I'll see you in the next one.